Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first Managed Auction Service webinar. Which should be the first of a couple that we're going to have before we move into auctions next year. For those that don't know me, my name is Shane Dynan. I'm the sponsor of this project, and joining me today on the panel we have Matt Calcart, who's our product manager, and will be taking us through the presentation today, and Esther Newton, the project manager as well. So we're really, from NZX's side, look, we're really pleased to be obviously sort of presenting here today, and also to be able to provide these auctions on behalf of government. Not actually presenting, but also sort of in attendance today as some of our other NZX colleagues, but also our partners from the Ministry for the Environment, plus EPA, EEX, and also our IT partner, New Zealand-based Akama. Look, we're about sort of 3 months out now from the first auction scheduled for 17th of March next year. We've got a jam-packed schedule in the lead up to that auction. We've actually got our development for the systems pretty much complete now. We're almost finished now with that. We're well into testing. Into the testing phase, and moving shortly into the certification phase as well too. So this webinar today, it's really just an opportunity to walk through some of the key activities that we've got on the plan coming up over the next couple of months. Matt will talk us through the registration, the collateral and settlement processes, and also some of the bidding aspects around auctions. We'll be able to, there'll be spots throughout the seminar or throughout the webinar today for an opportunity just to submit questions. And we ask if you could submit questions through the chat webinar, and we'll look to address those if we can at the end of each section, plus also some time at the end to follow up any further questions. But also, look, we'll look to respond or get back to people with questions or specific questions they might have after this event as well too. The event itself is recorded, and we'll be able to share the link after this as well too. So look, really, sort of without further ado, I won't take up any more time now, and I'll pass across to Matt.
Thank you very much, Shane. Like as Shane said, today's objective is to introduce everybody to ETS Auctions in leading up to our first auction on the 17th of March. So today we're just going to run through a bit of an overview of auctions. We'll touch on the registration process, what you need to do, what pieces of information you'll need to have together. We'll go through collateral and settlement. Big question for everybody, and then lastly we'll go over bidding in an auction and how that looks, and then how the auction actually works itself. At the end we'll have an open session for question and answers. As Shane mentioned, we'll stop after each section, answer 2 or 3 questions specific to that section. So as we run through, I would just ask that you target those questions to those specific areas as we run through. We'll leave the final Q&A session if you've got any broader questions, and we'll answer them off then. So auctions, who's who? So there's a couple of different parties acting within this, and first most, we've got Ministry for the Environment. They're the policy setter for the emissions trading scheme. They're also the regulator for ETS auctions. A bit uniquely, they're going to be holding all of the collateral as well for ETS auctions, and we'll touch on that one later. Then we've got NZX and EEX, who's the European Energy Exchange. In a joint proposal, we are the auction operator who's been appointed by the Ministry. We're responsible for the operations of ETS auctions. And then we've got the Environmental Protection Authority, who operate the New Zealand Emissions Trading Register, or the Register. And this is where everybody needs to hold an account so that they can receive their NZUs. Auctions are going to begin in 2021. We've got a set volume of 19 million units to be auctioned throughout 2021. Auctions are going to be held quarterly, and this volume is split evenly throughout. So we can see that we've got our first auction on the 17th of March, and we've got 4.75 million units available. And then subsequently for every other auction that we've got throughout that year. If there is unsold units from the first auction, they will roll over to the next one, so on and so on and so on. The volume is specific though to 2021. It won't roll from one calendar year to another. In addition to this volume, we've got the cost containment reserve, which is another 7 million units. That brings our total maximum volume available at auctions up to 26 million units for 2021. The CCR is only available if we hit $50. We'll speak on that more later. Again, they won't roll over to the next auction period. They're only available for 2021. All of this is set out in the Climate Change Limits and Price Control Settings for Units Regulations 2020. Our roadmap. So we're holding our first webinar today. We plan to hold another webinar on the 19th of January. Along with that webinar, we'll have how-to videos and we'll be able to demonstrate the system to you so you can get more familiarity with it. Towards the end of January, we're going to be holding simulated auctions. This is going to be on the 27th and the 28th of January. We'll have a little bit more information about that at the end of the webinar. Mid-February, we're planned for go live, so registration will open. At this point in time, we'll also hold a third webinar so that we can make sure that everybody's got the information that they need and we can cross off any questions. Of course, if you've got any questions between now and then, please reach out to us. Again, contacting information will be at the end of the webinar. And then we've got our first auction, which is on the 17th of March. All right, registration. Everybody's keen to register. So firstly, to be able to register for auctions or participate in auctions, everybody needs to hold a registry account number. This is done by EPA. So the very first thing that you need to do is you need to hold one of those registry accounts. And then before you can register with ETS Auctions, you need to reach out and notify the registrar of your intent to participate in auctions or register in auctions. So this is a notification process with the registrar. It's really straightforward. It mimics a process that they've already got there. It can be done by the account holder or the account operator and just needs to be signed by all account holders. We do ask that it is very important that you ensure that all your information is up to date. This will become vital when we've got to verify your information against the register. If you've got any more information, if you need any more information on that, please reach out to them. Their email is just listed there below as emissionstrading@epa.gov.nz. Once you've done that process, then you can come over to ETS Auctions. To complete the registration process with us, you're going to need the EPA registry account number. You're going to need the EPA unique ID. This is a confidential invite code which already exists. You'll be able to get this from them during that process as well. So you'll need that to complete the registration form. You'll also need to complete a statutory declaration form. And this just outlines some of the details that are already within the register. Who's the account holder, who are the primary representatives, which account you want NZUs to be transferred to, that sort of thing. Then you're just going to make a declaration at the bottom of that to state that all that information is true. You'll be required to upload that during the registration process, so you've got to submit that electronically. Excuse me. You also need a valid RealMe account. Everybody can get a RealMe account. If you've already got one, use that one. We do ask that if you've already got one and you use it with the registry, then you use the same one for auctioning. And then lastly, what you need is proof of bank details. And this will be in the participant's name. So this has got to be, or an example would be a deposit slip or a bank statement. And this is just demonstrating that the entity or individual who's registering owns that bank account. Again, you'll need to upload proof of that during the registration process. A good point to touch on here is that within ETS Auctions, we do have different user roles and they each facilitate a different function. So during the registration, the user who does that is going to be the account holder. So they're like the main admin person for the participant. that's going to be in auctioning. During that registration process, you can also nominate to be the bidder if you're going to participate. So just going through the user roles that we've got there, the account holder is the only one who can conduct the registration process. Once they're registered, they can then go through and invite as many subsequent users as they like. You can invite an admin. An admin is, as it sounds, and as we can see here, they're able to do pretty much everything except bid in an auction and register a participant. So you'll be able to add and remove users as well. And then we've got the clearing role. The clearing role is more like a read-only role, so they'll be able to come in and see historic information, be able to get invoices and everything like that. The only role that's able to access the auction is the bidder role. Now, everybody can have any combination of roles that they like. So when you're going through and you're registering, you're going to be the account holder. You can also nominate yourself to be the bidder. And this is going to give you the availability to be able to participate in the auction and bid on behalf of your participant. All subsequent users, other than the account holder, will need to go through our KYC process. And you can do this. This is an automated process, and you can do this with either a New Zealand driver's license or by supplying a passport. And you've just got to do this before you have access to the system, and this is so that we can identify everybody. Was there any questions specific to registration? No? Okay. Moving on to collateral and settlement. So lodging collateral. Collateral must be received at least 5 working days prior to the auction. So this is the cutoff. Anything that's received after that point won't be eligible, and you won't be able to carry that into the auction. You can submit collateral as cash, which would be a bank transfer, and it's going to be deposited into a nominated ministry bank account. You can also use a letter of credit or bank guarantee. For letters of credit and bank guarantees, the ministry is actually going to administer these instruments. They will also be the counterparty for these instruments. As soon as we have more information on what this process looks like, we'll be able to share this with you. Collateral is held at 25% of your maximum bid. So just for example, if you submit $1 million in collateral, you can only bid up to $4 million. And that's what's going to be the limiting factor on how much you can bid. Settlement. So once we've had the auction, we're going to produce invoices. So invoices will be issued on the same day as the auction, and they will be total 1 NZUs multiplied by the clearing price. So everybody pays what is determined as the clearing price. The cutoff for settlement is 4 business days after the auction. And for ETS auctions, we work on a payment before delivery. So you need to be fully settled before you're then going to receive your NZUs. And only cleared funds will be considered payment. So we need to see that those funds are fully cleared before we can say that the invoice has been fully paid. You can use cash collateral towards an invoice. You do, however, need to notify the auction operator, us, in writing at least 5 working days prior to the auction. So this falls in line with the collateral cutoff. So just when you submit collateral, you need to let us know if you want to use that towards your invoice or not. And we will do that once the auction and the invoices are published. Once settlement is complete, so this would be T+4. So on T+5, we will issue instructions to the registrar to transfer the NZUs that you've won. This then goes through the process with the registrar, so allow a little bit of time for this to happen. Default. Default's a little bit different in ETS auctions. If an invoice is not settled in full, the participant will have defaulted. So if there's a part payment towards an invoice and we get to settlement and the remainder of the payment hasn't been made, then this will be considered default. During this time, or at this point in time, sorry, 25% of your invoice value would be forfeit to the Crown. Any NZUs covered by this invoice will be considered unsold and will roll over to the next auction, provided that next auction is still within the same calendar year. After that, if you have any remaining collateral or part payments towards the invoice, this will be returned to you. We'll just cover off a couple of questions that we've got in regarding payments. So just got a question here, can I pay the invoice by making several cash deposits? Yes, you can, and this is just going to be into a nominated bank account. It's going to be a ministry bank account in the same way that collateral is managed, and we will reconcile that against your invoice. All right. Moving on. Bidding in an auction. So the auctions themselves will be conducted quarterly, and we've got a fixed bidding window. So that's from 9 AM to 12 PM. So they're going to run for 3 hours. Auctions are single round sealed bid with uniform pricing. So that means that we have one round of collecting bids. You can't see anybody else's bids but your own participants. And at the end of it, we have a uniform pricing structure. So everybody pays the same clearing price. For 2021, we have a price floor of $20 and we have a trigger price of $50. Now these will increase in 2022 and subsequent years. They will increase by 2% per year. For bids, we have a bid price increment of 5 cents. So you can only bid in 5-cent increments. We have a minimum bid amount of 500 NZUs or 5 lots. And the bid increment is 100 NZUs or 1 lot. So you go from 500 NZUs to 600 to 700. And this makes the minimum bid value $10,000. Subsequently, the minimum collateral amount held to be able to participate in an auction is $2,500. To be able to access the auction. To access the auction, you need to be completely registered. You will need to have submitted collateral before the cutoff date, so that's T-5. And as a user, you'll also need the bidder role. This will allow you to pass through and be able to bid into the auction. 24 hours prior to the auction, there'll be a warm-up period. So this will start T-1 at 9 AM. This will allow you to come in, test your connection, get familiar with the process of logging in, making sure that you can access the auction itself. You'll be able to see what the auction screen looks like, the bidding window looks like. During this period, however, you will not be able to place any bids. Bids will only be accepted during the bidding window. You can place bids for any participant that you're authorized for. So as a user, you can be authorized for multiple participants. And when you're placing a bid, you'll get a drop-down box where you'll be able to select the participant on which you want to place that bid for. Again, we'll have a demonstration of this in our second webinar. You can do this when you're placing a bid, you can do it in 2 ways. So there's a manual entry where you can input the price, the volume, and the participant. There's also a reference element, which is optional. The second way is that you can upload a CSV. It's going to have the same parameters as what the manual one does. Again, we'll share a demonstration of that, and you'll be able to access and see what the format of that CSV file is prior to the auction. During the bidding window, bids can be submitted, edited, or removed. There's no limit to the number of bids that you're going to be able to submit other than the amount of collateral that you've placed and carry through into the auction. The clearing price. So the clearing price is set by either the lowest bid, if we've got a partially subscribed auction, so we don't have enough bid volume to fill the entirety of the auction, or the bid that crosses the volume offered at auction. So you can see on the right-hand side here, we've got a fully subscribed auction, and where we've got that bid volume, that bid there is the bid that sets the clearing price, And in our example there, that bid's going to be partially filled. So it'll just be filled up to the point of the amount of volume that's going to be offered. And then every successful bidder is going to pay that set clearing price. So those bids that are there, that price of those bids that are above that clearing price, they're only going to pay the clearing price. The cost containment reserve. So for 2021, the trigger price for the cost containment reserve is $50 and the volume is 7 million units. Now the 7 million units is across the entirety of the year. So for the first auction, there's going to be 7 million units available. If we use some of that, then there'll be slightly less available for the second auction and it'll roll all the way through. That volume again is only for the 2021 period and won't roll over to the 2022 period. To be able to trigger this and release this into the auction, we have two criteria. So the bid volume needs to be greater than the initial auction volume. So you can see that's the case in our example here. And we need the initial clearing price is at or above $50. So in our previous example, we crossed the line and we were just determining the clearing price. Now, if we did the same thing here, we can see where we've got the CCR trigger volume labeled, that we've got a bid there that is above the trigger price and has more volume. So in this case, we meet that criteria. So we release additional volume for sale into the auction, and then we continue on. And you can see that for our last bid that we've got there, it actually falls below the trigger price. So we can't satisfy that bid. So if we hit the trigger and release the CCR volume, the auction cannot clear below the trigger price. So in this case, the auction cannot clear below $50. We will continue to fill as many bids as we can, as long as the price remains at 50 or above. All right, we've got a couple of questions come in, so we're just going to run through some of them. We've got ones: can we use NZUs as collateral? No, unfortunately, we can't use NZUs as collateral. The only acceptable collateral would be cash, a letter of credit, or a bank guarantee. Are bidding window timings fixed? Yes. So they are only from 9 AM to 12 PM on the day of the auction. Again, these are set out in the regulations as well, so they won't fluctuate at all. Is a bidder able to place multiple bids for parcels at different prices? Absolutely. So you can place as many bids as you like, at different volumes, at different prices, anything that you like. As long as it meets the criteria of the minimum bid volume and the minimum price for the bid. Your only limiting factor to how many bids you're going to be able to submit is to how much of your collateral that you've used. And during the bidding window, when you submit bids, you're going to be able to see how much of your collateral that you've used as the bids that you've already submitted. So what happens when the clearing price is made up of multiple bidders? So this would be when we've got a tied bid situation. So we'll only have a tied bid situation where we have multiple bids at the clearing price, and this will be prorated. So we will fill all of the bids that we possibly can, and then we'll have a remaining volume for which there are multiple bids trying to fit in against. We'll prorata those bids down to that volume, and then we'll round them down to the nearest lot. This should mean that we are only ever left with a lot or two after this, and they will then be apportioned randomly to one of those bids that has been made at that tied bid. I think that's all the questions that we've got. Thank you very much. If you do have any more questions, please don't feel free to get in contact with us. And I'll just pass over to Esther to outline our next steps.
Cool, thanks so much, Matt. So I just wanted to cover what we have coming up. So first things first, after this webinar, we'll send out the presentation to everyone and also the recorded version of this webinar, so you can share it with all your networks that may be interested, and if you want to look back at particular sections, because I know there's a lot of content covered in quite a short amount of time. On that note, we're going to meet again in the new year to go through our second webinar. This one will be a bit more in depth. We'll actually be able to show you the auction platform itself and be able to demonstrate these things we've talked about in the system. So that will give you a bit more of a visual feel for how it's going to work. And then the most interactive part will be the simulated auctions at the end of January. So this will give you a real taste of the auction, and you'll have the opportunity to test out all your own processes and to train anyone in your team that you need to be involved. So we're also going to send out an invitation to register for the simulated auctions after the webinar as well, so you can start thinking about who you want to have involved and make sure organisation is part of that test auction. And lastly, from here until later next year, the best thing to do is prepare for registration at this stage. So if you can review your status in the register and all of the details you have are up to date, that will make the registration process as smooth as possible. So it'd be great for you to go through that. And yeah, until then, just please keep in touch with us. You have our contact details there, and I'm very happy to answer any specific questions you might have, or if you'd like to meet with us to talk more. So just do reach out. So that's everything from us today. Thanks to Shane and Matt for taking us through that, and we'll be in touch with you soon with all of this information. So thank you for your time. All right, see you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.